And for today's message, let us all take 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 45. So I will read it for you. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give you the body of the Philistine army to the birds and to the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And those gathered here will know that it is not by the sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly forward the battle line to meet him, reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, and he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell down faceward on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, without a sword in his hand, and he struck down the Philistine and killed him. So we see a beautiful thing that happened, and for the past 2 to 3 weeks before, or maybe 1 month before, we have been meditating from the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, the same chapter 17, and we see a beautiful thing that happened, which is very interesting to look at. What David had done in the history of Israel. We see in the background of this message that we are going to meditate, the verse 38, it tells that Saul dressed David in his own tunic. So Saul took an initiative, he took an effort to dress up David like a soldier. So in his own tunic, which means it was Saul's way of preparing himself for the battle, or either Saul's armies would probably use such tunics for their battles. And we see Saul brought David inside his palace, inside his place, and he changed the dress of David. So while coming from his father's house, from Jesse's house, David had a different dress because his profession was shepherding sheep. So as shepherds shepherd their sheep, they prefer to wear a very loose clothes, not so grand dress, because it will probably get dirty while taking care of those sheep. So he came not in a good dress, or not in a dress which is suitable for the battle. He just came as it is, with whatever he had, with whatever appearance he had, with whatever things that he had in his hand. He just went to the place of battle as it is. You see, Saul should have watched David. So as the words of David, the bold words of David reached King Saul, Saul must have called David immediately and would have probably watched from top of his head to the heel. So Saul thought that his words are very brave, but his appearance does not match according to the boldness that he has inside of him. So Saul, he looked David in a different way. So he thought in a good way to dress up David, so that David would probably go out for the battle with the help of his equipments. And we see he put a coat of armor on David. He dressed David in a sense, he changed his appearance, his dressing sense. He put on a coat of armor for David, because David was not some gigantic figure, or he was not trained for battle actually. And he was a simple young fellow. He was not at all trained to handle a sword. He was not at all trained to hold up a spear. He was not trained to face an enemy in the battle line. So David's brothers were in the army of Saul. So their profession was holding up a sword, going for battle, winning wars, waging wars, etc. But David, without all these experience and without all this environment, he comes forward, and while putting up the armor, Saul thought that this armor will surely protect David from all the dangers that are ahead of him. And Saul thought that very suitable for David, because with the help of this armor, David is going to surely win the battle. And not only he put up a coat of armor on David, he put up a bronze helmet. He put up a bronze helmet on David's head, which means Saul thought that if David puts a helmet, a bronze helmet, and that bronze helmet is going to save him, and that is going to give him victory. But we see David tried all these things. He did not say no at the first. After putting up all the helmet and the armor and the other things which Saul gave, he is now trying to walk with all those things. So as David was trying to walk with the armor and the helmet, he could not do that. He could not walk properly. So it was like a very young kid carrying such a huge luggage as like a elder person. So he was not comfortable with the weapons and with the armors and with the bronze helmet that Saul provided him. So he was not used to it, because all a shepherd has in his hand is a staff and a stick and some pouch to carry some food for him, as well as some drinking water. So this is the first time David puts up a different cloth apart from his own clothing. So as he tried and tried, he was very uncomfortable with all the things. So he told to Saul, the king of Israel, I cannot go with all these things. So see the boldness of David. Even after providing safety protection gears, and it is not someone who is from the army or the commander who provides this. It is the king of Israel who is providing all these things, all the benefits for David. But David felt uncomfortable. He tells, I cannot go with all these things, and because I am not used to it, this is all new for me. So he took off. All the things that Saul provided him. And we see David took the staff as usually, went to the brook, went to some river kind of thing, and he picked up 5 smooth stones and just placed those 5 smooth stones in the pouch that he had. And that was probably a shepherd's pouch. And not only that, he carried his staff, picked up 5 stones, and he had a sling in his hands. The sling in his hands, usually the shepherds use it to chase away the wild animals and the other things, wild creatures that disturbs the sheep. So taking off all the safety things, he took the simple things and approached the giant in front of him. And in the verse 41 we see Goliath's shield bearer went ahead of him, and they moved closer and closer and closer to David. So we see at the point of time, Goliath mocks David. He watched David coming to the battle line, and he would have probably laughed at David. And we also see he saw David as a very little boy. So he was not up to the level of Goliath. was not up to the level of the people who were behind the Goliath. And he saw a very tiny fellow standing in front of him, and with a proud look, he tells, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" Which means that this is a very new thing, because a person who goes for a battle would probably take some protection tools with him. So, if not sword or spear, a person goes for a battle must have gone with some other metal equipments to protect himself or to strike somebody. An unusual thing happens. A warrior comes out from the crowd with sticks, with stones and slings. So, by looking at this, the giant laughed at him, and the Philistine cursed David. So he was cursing David by his God, by the God of Israel, by the God of David. Goliath cursed David. And we see he not just cursed the Israelites, he not just cursed Saul and his armies, he not just cursed David, but the God of David. So the whole Israel was put to shame at that time. So everybody were very ashamed of all these things. And Goliath told, "Come here," which means it's a proud attitude towards a person. And we see the same proud attitude, like, I have safety gears, I have a helmet, I have such and such things, and I have a great army behind me. You are a very small fellow, you and all your people are very afraid, and they're just running behind you, and they just leave the place, and you are all alone in this place, caught up into my hands. And he was very much proud in all those things. So we see that Goliath told David that, "I will give your flesh to the birds and to the wild animals," which means that in the ancient Israel or the ancient times, if a man is beaten up by any wild animal, or if a man is dead in an open place, and the birds and the vultures eat up his flesh, that seems to be a very worst thing that could ever happen in one's life. It's not just a worst thing; it's a shameful thing, which was considered in the ancient times. It was a disgraceful thing for a person. It was ultimately a curse, considered as a curse for a person. So, a person who is dead and his body is open in a field or in any place, and the vultures or the eagles come up, or the wild beasts come up and eat up, all the other people consider that person as a cursed person. So he has not been done a good burial. His flesh has been eaten up by all the birds and all the animals. So we say, how does a burial for a person takes place? Probably his family members all would be there. And if a man is dead, his friends, relatives, and the people whom are well known to him will be there. So the neighbors, the colleagues, all the people will be there. And the burial of a person who is dead, who is dead and who has all these families and friends around him, those burials will be in a place with systematic rituals happening. So it will end up in a proper place, done in a proper place. But we see, if there is no family in a burial place of a person, or when a person is dead, no family members is there, no friends is there, so no relatives comes to the place, how does it feel? So it's like kind of some waste material which is laid outside somewhere. So how it is worse? We need to look at that. And this is what Goliath intended to David. He told David, this is what he meant. So he told, see, I'm going to put your flesh to the birds and to the wild animals, and they will eat up all your flesh. Which means, I will put up your flesh and your body as a cursed person's body, and I will kill you and put your flesh, and the vultures will eat, as if you are a cursed person, and I will make your name a disgraceful one, and I will make a shame of your body even after the death of yours. And David, after hearing all these words, David did not lose his faith in God. So that's the beautiful thing that we can learn from the life of David. You see, after hearing all these things, when we compare ourselves with David, if some person comes to us and speak all these things against of us, how will we tolerate, or how will we handling that? It's very difficult. We will sometimes cry, we will sometimes lose our faith, we will step back. But see the confidence and the faith of David. He did not lose his faith in God. David did not fear him, or just stepped behind, or went home running after hearing all these things, or just got wapas all the things that he told. No, he did not do all these things. Even after all, David stood at the same place. Saul and his armies were running from that place, and they were hiding probably. But see, David, he has such great background. He has no person to console him, to motivate him, to direct his next steps. With the help of God, he steps forward and takes a bold faith. So he was standing at the same place without the fear of Goliath. He did not fear the armor that the Goliath had. He did not fear the words of Goliath, not the spear, not the javelin that Goliath had. So he was with full confidence in God, and he had full faith in God. And verse 45, we see David told Goliath, it's an counter answer for Goliath. David tells now, you come against me with sword, spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty. So David comes in the name of the Lord Almighty. So this is the Lord Almighty, which is mentioned by David. Who is this Lord Almighty? When we look at this and the history of Israel before, we see this Lord Almighty was the person, was the God who stood behind the people of Israel, and he struck down the Egyptians while the Israelites were in the land of Egypt slaves. So the Lord Almighty is not something new to the people of Israel. They have seen, their forefathers have seen the mighty acts of God, their God, and they have watched and heard the message that happened in Egypt. And this Almighty was the God who protected and who picked them out of the land of slavery. He is not just a simple God, he is Almighty, and he is all powerful, he is all wonderful, he is all glorious God. So the God of Israel, the God of David, is such a huge God. And we see Goliath came with his might, he came with his own strength, and he came with his own knowledge, and he came with his own experience. But David came there not like Goliath. David was not trained for battle. David did not have a physical strength like Goliath had, or he did not have the power, and he did not have the knowledge of the battle, and he did not have the experience of Goliath. So the Goliath was trained from his youth. Even when he was kid, he was trained as a warrior, but David did not have such privileges. But David came in the name of the Lord Almighty. So in whose name you are relying on? So that is the question that I want to ask you. In whose name are we relying on? Whose name we are carrying? So wherever we go, do we carry God's name? And do we do things in the name of the Lord Almighty. So whatever we do and whatever we act, whatever we speak, and in every situations and in every place, as like David carried and have come in the name of the Lord, so as followers of Christ, we have to carry the name of the Lord wherever we go. So the credit should not come to us. So whatever we do in all the works, while we are successful in our lives and we achieve something, reach a goal, and we are praised by many people, and it's a beautiful thing that we can learn from the life of David. So this time David had not yet won the battle. In the upcoming verses we see how he overcome. Even in this point of time, it's a privilege for David actually. It's a historic thing, because nobody in the history of Israel had met up a great giant before and stood front of that person and have spoken the words. When all the people feared even to speak against the giant, the first person in the history of Israel was David, who stood at the front and spoke against Goliath, and he was ready to battle. So what is there in the name of the Lord? So as we speak the name of the Lord, and Lord is Almighty. So what is inside the name of the Lord is, number one, the power. So the name of the Lord has the power. The name of the Lord has the authority. So that is why David went with an authority. So he went with the power. So if David had not went out with the name of the Lord, in the name of the Lord, then the power and the authority won't be visible. We cannot see such things in the life of David. We see in the name of the Lord we have hope, and we have confidence, we have strength, we have life, and we have victory. So name of the Lord is not something very a very narrow thing. It is a very wider thing, and human minds cannot understand His majesty. So the name of the Lord contains so many great things, but as for now we can fix in these things: the power, authority, hope, confidence, strength, life, everything, and victory. So David went with the great name of the Lord Almighty. Even though David did not have anything, he had one thing, the name of the Lord, and that was more than enough for David to win the battle. Next we see David's words of faith. So after the verse 45, we again see the other verses. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I will strike you down and cut off your head. Here the words of David has a full list of faith, and it's a faith-filled word, because a person defeats and speaks all these things, it would be not so that much interesting. So people actually in the battles or in the wrestling, after they win a battle or win a match, only after winning they will thank everybody, and they will tell all these things. So I have won you, so my God has given you this and that strength. I want to thank this people and that people. But even before the battle begins, the faithful words of David say, this day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. It means that your game is going to end this very day, and today I will strike you, not just striking you and trying my level best, but I will cut off your head. So he tells that I will separate your head from your body, and I will separate you from your people. So the body of the Philistine will be given to the wild animals and beasts. So the first time Goliath used these words to David, and now we see David using his words, and he is returning all his words to Goliath himself. And there he tells that there is a living God in Israel. So David's intention was, people after this battle will realize and will know that there is a God in Israel, and He is not just a simple God, He is all powerful, He is victorious God, He gives victory to His people, and He is a great God. So all the other nations will hear that there is a living God who protects these people of Israel. So verse 47 we see, not by sword or spear that the Lord saves. David tells, not by the sword, not by the equipments that you have, not by the tangible things that the Lord gives victory, that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's. This words of David has a very strong connection with his Creator. So he tells them, my God is not a God who does things, who gives victory only if we have any sword or only when we have anything to fight against some people. But my God is a God who takes up the battle in His hands, as if people have come to fight against God Himself. So they have come to fight against me, but my God takes up all these things very seriously, and the battle is not mine, and the battle is my God's. And the battle is my Lord's. It is not me who is going to fight against you. It is not my strength that is going to hit you. It is not my knowledge that is going to guide me. It is not my experience that is going to give me victory. But the God who is inside of me, He is going to take care of me. He is going to take care of the upcoming things that is about to come. He is going to take the victory from your hand and is going to give into my hands. So his words tell us that it is not me who is going to fight against you. It is my God who is inside of me. So He will give all of you, not just you. He will give all your fellow people into my hands. And this day, note this words, mark my words. This very day is going to be the end of you as well as the people who are behind you. So the verse 48, it tells that Goliath came closer. He was just moving up closer to David. And David ran toward the battle line to meet him. So he was very bold to meet up Goliath. And Goliath was very much lethargic in handling or very proud while looking at the situation. So verse 49, it tells that David took out the 5 smooth stones from his pouch. With a sling in his hand, this David just placed stone in the sling and he just hit the stone toward Goliath. And it's a surprise, which is that stone sank into the forehead of Goliath. Commonly, stones, when we hit the stones on somebody, it hits up the person, it bounces back and it falls into the ground, falls on the ground. But the first time we see a stone has sunk into a forehead of Goliath. So Goliath, after getting hit up by David with the stones, Goliath fell face down on the ground. Goliath was standing and David was standing opposite of him. When David hit Goliath on his forehead, the Goliath did not fall back. He fell forward. That's an unusual thing happened. I believe that probably God would be the reason behind that. Like when Goliath fell down towards David, it is like, I am nothing. I am just completely surrendering myself to you. Verse 50, David won not with the sword or spear, as the Bible tells us, not with his knowledge or experience, but David won that day with the help of the Lord. And David killed Goliath that day. And we see verse 51, David ran and stood over him, and he took hold of the Philistine's sword and he drew it from the sheath. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. So we see David did not have sword or spear, so he went and stood on the giant, the great giant Goliath, and he took off the sword that Goliath had. So the sword which was about to hit up the head or the hit up the body of David, David now picks up the sword that was against him, and he uses that same sword to cut off his enemy. So he cut off the head of the Goliath, and he just threatened. It was like a shocking incident. It's all the years the Philistines were the winning side, on the winning side. So they will scare somebody, they will win the battle, because their hero was something gigantic. You see, when the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, so they turned and ran. So that day, God gave victory to the people of Israel through a very young fellow, David. And in today's time, we see the faith of David. So how David had faith in God. So David having faith in God is a kind of normal one and a kind of surprising one, because we see the starting time, the beginning of the chapter 17 and the other parts in this. You see, David's faith was as it is, was same when he started up his battle and he ended up his battle. And while he was talking to the people of Israel, in a complete chapter, we see a same faith was continuously passing on in the mind of David. So he had a very strong and not a fluctuating faith. So the name of the Lord, which means that the name of the Lord is the God's name. We have many names to God, and and the purpose of the name of the Lord is so many that we cannot comprehend, and we cannot put up in a single box. So today I want to just leave with three important things. You see, David's flow of faith was same. It did not go up and down. The faith of David did not fade away in a particular situation, or it did not rise up in a particular situation. When he was taking all the food for his brothers, and that time till he owned and cut off the head of Goliath, he had a very strong faith in his God. So the number one is that we learn from today's message is believe in the name of the Lord. So David believed in the name of his Lord. You see, the success of David was that he first of all believed in the name of the Lord. So sometimes people work, sometimes people plan, sometimes people execute their plans without the help of the Lord, or without considering or without believing in the name of the Lord. So they don't believe, they just do things and ask God to bless their things, that whatever they do. So in order to reveal a great thing, and in order to bring a great victory to us, first thing that we need to do is to believe in the name of the Lord. And the second thing is to go in the name of the Lord, not just believing. And many people have very much difficulty in believing in the name of the Lord. Can we believe this God? Or can we believe the God of David? So can he deliver me from this situation? Or can he provide me a great victory? All these negative things and the unfaithful things runs up in mind. The first thing is believe. Second thing, not just believing and sitting at home and just believing. So first believe, then we must go outside. So we must go in the name of the Lord. We need to take a step forward. We need to take the first step. So, and God also wants such kind of people. Sometimes people believe that my God is going to deliver this and deliver me from this trouble. He is going to give me victory. But at the end of the day, from morning till evening, they believe, and at the time of executing their plans and their beliefs, they don't put them into action. And going out in the name of the Lord is putting up our beliefs into action. So that's where people outside can see how a God beautifully guides us and gives us victory. The third one is when we believe and go in the name of the Lord, God gives victory to us. And the third one is win the battle in the name of the Lord. So most of the time we believe in the name of the Lord, we go in the name of the Lord, but at the credit, at the winning moment, we give the credit and the name to somebody else. We thank somebody else for the victory. We win the battle in somebody else's name. So we tell, this person has helped me, so I have won this, or I have this overcome this struggle with the help of this person, this friend of mine. So while we win up a battle or win up a struggle or trouble, we must win our battles in the name of the Lord. So that is what all these things is what God wants from us. So he needs, first of all, he needs to believe in his name, to go out and face the challenges in his name, and to win the battle in his name. And the title for today's message is Faith Without Fluctuation. Faith without fluctuation. So what happens to a bulb which has a very fluctuating current supply? What happens? The glowing part or the bulb will easily get defected. It will get overheated, or it will give brighter light and dimmer light very, very suddenly. It's a fraction of a second. And what happens when the light is too high and too low, too high and too low? The voltage, the bulb gets blown up, broken up by the power, or we find difficult in seeing objects in a home. So a faith should not get fluctuated in every situation. So as the current supply is very smooth and the current is not fluctuating in our homes, the lights and the devices that we have, the bulbs, the fans, everything runs properly. So this simple example should be taken in our lives, and we see our faith in God sometimes have many fluctuations. When God provides a good thing for us, our faith will be rising up. And when God holds up certain things in our lives, and that time our faith just comes at the middle level. And sometimes when God does something in his own way, so, and when we don't like his way of executing plans in our lives, then our faith goes very much down. And we see many people around us, and maybe we too might be there in that position. So rising up, our faith rises up and going middle and going down and going suddenly up and going down and middle. So we see from the life of David, from the starting till the end, he has a very straight, not fluctuating one, a pure and very good intention and faith that he had in God. So I encourage each and every one of us who have seated here to have your faith in God, to place your faith in Jesus in every situation, and in whatever situation God takes us, and whatever plans that he executes us and he puts up in our hearts. Never lose a faith in the name of the Lord. So never lose a faith in Jesus. So when we lose our faith and our faith is fluctuated, and the time of fluctuation is the time where the devil comes in and he puts up the plans of his army. He tells us that you cannot do all these things, and see, you see a great giant, you see what's your experience, you see who are they have the power and authority and you don't have them, and you are just a normal common person, you cannot go and defeat there, so you better run from this part. So this part is enough for you, so please run behind and save your life. And that is where devil comes up and puts negative thoughts in our faithful way of running to God. And that's where the barrier is being placed before us. And God is now waiting for all of us. He is just keenly watching us whether we will cross the barriers and have a proper, straight and a good level of faith till the end, or is my child is going to have a fluctuating faith and is going to come back and forth, is going to move out and in and out and in, is going to do that, or he is going to straightly, boldly and with a confidence is going to face the challenges. So that's today's message. And from the life of David, we have learned in every situation, whether in times of ups and downs, happy or sad, or when God gives good things or God does not provide good things in our lives, have a single faith which is not fluctuated in any situation. Where God blesses and uses, and the battle and the victory is the Lord's, and it is not by our minds and our experience and our talents or skills. And God is expecting us to have a great faith and go and stand in front of the challenges that we have. But we are not going to fight against any people. It is the God who is inside of us. He is going to stand before us, and He is going to break all the barriers that are ahead of us.